Welcome to the Paige Turner Podcast featuring Miss Winters. I will be sharing my findings on a book called The Four Essential Studies, Beliefs and Practices to Reclaim Student Agency by Penny Kittle and Kelly Gallagher. Book clubs, I automatically think, how can we squeeze like an entire book club within an actual quarter, let alone an actual week, or even in class time in general, period? Like, how do we make it happen? But over the years, we have made it happen. But oftentimes, it seems as if when we hear book club, we automatically think, oh my goodness, like, I know these students are not going to read every single page, or at least not all of them. And sometimes we get a lot of like overwhelmment. But here are some things that I noted in this chapter that stuck out to me. Chapter 2, book clubs. Now, when we hear book clubs, I know we automatically think, okay, here we go. We're going to end up reading a novel together. That's the expectation. However, we're going to have a few students who are not going to read at all and possibly use SparkNotes to get through it, or maybe even ChatGPT. However, in this chapter, there were many different insights and tips presented that I would like to share with you all. There was a quote that mentioned that there's something that we can't seem to find in research, how teaching a year of whole class novels builds all students' engagement in the habit of lifelong reading when large populations of adolescents refuse to read what is assigned to them and also do not read for pleasure outside of school. Our curriculum needs revision. We should start by including not only books that represent the lived experience of our students, but books that open new worlds to them. Bishop, 1990. And I agree with that quote. Do you? Through book clubs, it's best that we try to hold our students accountable. However, we must ensure that we need to build the reading momentum before students even enter or begin a book club per se. And that scaffolding, as mentioned within the book, begins with reestablishing an independent reading habit. Now, that poses as a challenge at times attempting to re-engage all students in the regular act of reading. However, Kittle and Gallagher present two critical reading factors that would help students remain engaged. By one, building momentum, and two, establishing individual reading identities. Majority of the time, students are exposed to cursory reading, whereas they read a quick or excerpt and perform like some type of superficial examination of a text without any type of in-depthness. This in turn does not help or prepare them for future endeavors such as college courses, where students are expected to read sometimes a book within a week. Kittle and Gallagher also advocated here that student choice was important. Personally, I'm all for student choice. However, the suggestion to allow students to read independently sounds quite whimsical and dreamy. Granted, we have been forced to do it within our curriculum versus guiding students. I mean, a healthy combination of both should suffice, where the teacher should be able to guide students within their reading and also grant them time to read independently. Realistically, we must factor in that some students are passed on within secondary education as illiterate, whether there are factors that stem from IEPs, ESOL, lack of resources, or even merely out of sympathy. It is quite difficult to do this instantly in regards to ensuring we can hold students accountable immediately to read independently. I believe that it definitely requires students to view our classes as a safe space, whereas we can build our student-teacher relationships, which inevitably will build trust within students undergoing the independent reading process. For I feel that in regards to independent reading, primarily accountability is a lost concept often preached but falsely practiced, in my opinion. What's your take? Because I believe when it comes to independent reading, it's great with reservations, authenticity, and awareness. The chapter also emphasizes the importance of student conversations as being geared to drive engagement within a book club. True, but we also need to be real and consider the individuals who may not have read, for whatever the case may be. There should always be alternative questions to counter this, whereas there are questions that are influenced by the book. However, students are able to form secular connections and merge them with concepts that we want them to know, aside from pulling evidence from the book, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. Kittle and Gallagher then segued into the most important practices when it comes to teaching book clubs. And that's practice number 1, that we choose books that are relevant. They mentioned here, quote, in 2017, we shifted the theme of our book clubs to social justice. Why social justice? White supremacist marches occurred in Charlottesville, Virginia, and in other places. The President of the United States referred to Mexicans as drug addicts and rapists. An alarming number of videos surfaced depicting adolescents engaged in racist acts. The country argued about Colin Kaepernick and the Take a Knee movement. A debate about banning Confederate flags simmered again in Penny's High School. We didn't pick the theme of social justice. The theme picked us. What are your thoughts on that statement? They further moved forward and they suggested how students were interested in books such as The Hate U Give or Hillbilly Elegy, which has posed major commotion and sometimes conflict within book clubs or even districts, school districts. And even if we look within a broader setting, politics, whereas certain themes were deemed to be problematic. I found it an interesting point on how majority of the topics that intrigue students are current impromptu issues that are often deemed taboo within society today, especially within the United States. Kittle and Gallagher mentioned how important it was to actually teach and voice about anti-racism. However, how can students practice or voice anti-racism in societies that deem racism mythological or divisive? For example, when we look at the politics of Florida, or even people's takes on the teaching of critical race theory. And this chapter does not address the factoring in book bans even. I feel as if they actually voice great points. However, liberal suggestions always face pushback within conservative curricular operations. Another suggestion in regards to student engagement within a book club is that we can connect readers across schools, whereas certain students from different schools can come and actually visit and witness a book club in real time. Maybe we could do this at our school even, and at least start off with actually having individuals from different grade levels come and actually sit in on different class book clubs. I think that would be a great idea. What do you think? Constantly, the theme within this chapter was that the best teacher of reading and writing is experience. We can also engage students within author studies, such as studying picture books, young adult novels, short stories, and other genres, whereas we present questions that connect with the author and try to analyze how his or her background pertains to the contributions of their books. Another practice suggested was that we increase student-generated talk. How do we do this? They suggested we can do this via open-ended discussion questions, student-generated 2-page spreads, charts, tables, and graphs, and specific key sentences and passages. Kittle and Gallagher also suggested ways to extend thinking within book clubs, such as 1, find a gossipy moment in the book, 2, identify the turns in the book, 3, discuss a critical decision made in the chapter or book, 4, capture a shift in your thinking. Or 5, discuss a minor character of major importance. Throughout the book club process, we can always perform a formative assessment to check the pulse of our students' learning or understanding. For example, we can conduct one-on-one conferences, quick writes, table level and whole class discussions, or self-generated 2-page spreads. Lastly, the author suggests we focus on the following versus ELA standards. Now, in my opinion, these are all great ideas, but we know realistically we cannot abandon ELA standards and solely focus on gauging quantitative data. My final thoughts is that the best way to learn is to read and write, is to perform, of course. However, the actual practice itself, the problem exists whereas some students lack the foundational skills to execute those concepts in the demeanor expected. That does not mean that all of our students fit that criteria. Neither does that dismiss this being an issue, but it's one that needs to be addressed and dealt with patience as teachers within how we conduct book clubs and when we're not conducting book clubs.